Hi everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge. Hope you're all doing really well. Big show for you tonight on the United Stand as ex-United legend Nicky Butt slams Manchester United's strange transfer policy. He also has his say on Ten Hag, on the future of Manchester United. But look, I also want to get into a bit of a story later on. I've just done the watch along for the England game. A lot of people saying, what do you think about this Garnacho versus Rashford sort of war that's going on social media at the moment? I don't know whether it's a war, but it needs to be stopped. We need peace on this, and we'll talk about why in a moment. This is where Player FC gets out of fucking control. We saw it with Bruno and Pogba. It needs fans need to unite on this. I don't care whether it's, I don't care who's behind it or what's going on with it. It has to stop. It's bloody ridiculous. We'll talk about that in a moment. But look, let's get into the show. We are going to talk about... Look, I want to say straight away, this is a few days old, actually. I purposely kept this back till Saturday night because the Saturday night show is a very different show and I like to get into more deeper comments. I was going to do the Onana chat and then this was there a couple of days ago and I thought I want to talk about this because as somebody who's actually really pro Erik Ten Hag, we're going to get into it on Ran now. So basically what Nicky Butt has said is that he was asked whether he had seen any improvements in Manchester United this season. And he said, short answer, no. Signings don't scream Premier League title quality. And it looks to me like United are just trying to get back into Europe. I don't see a plan with these signings. I don't understand what they're going for. These signings are not superstars from their clubs. So look, ultimately, it is a damning indictment from Nicky Butt. But it's probably the first person that's an ex-player that I've actually gone and respected what he's said. And look, some of you are Ten Hag out and you do come out with good stuff as well. But I think this is going to be a really worthwhile few minutes just going through his comments and sort of breaking it down and having your say on it. Because I'm firmly Ten Hag in, but Nicky Butt for me is a United legend, 100%, class of 92, fantastic player, but actually should still be working at the football club. I've got a lot of time for Nicky Butt and he doesn't talk a lot, but when he does talk, he tends to make a lot of sense. You know, Neville's a media outlet. Beckham never speaks about anything. He's got his own brand, really. Scholes sometimes, Keane sometimes. But I find Nicky Butt really, very, very, very good. And even though he's taken a little bit of a dig, I suppose, at Ten Hag, and what he said about Ten Hag was he's only here because they couldn't find anything better, which we'll talk about in a few moments. But I haven't got a problem with somebody having an opposing view to me if I can understand it and respect it. And what Nicky Butt was at United was, in his own words, ready to blow. I was going to blow if I didn't leave. The club, when I was there, the vision and the philosophy didn't match mine, and I was basically going to blow a fuse if I stayed at the football club. He was head of first team development, so he was the guy that was linking in with the youth team to develop them to be ready for the first team. He had a very important role at the club, Nicky Butt. Manchester United through and through. Absolutely. And I think it was a big shame when Nicky Butt left. And I had hoped that Sir Jim would bring him back because I think Nicky Butt doesn't have the glamour of a Scholes or a Neville and doesn't have the media profile, certainly, of a Neville. But he was working in the club as a coach. And I just think he's one of those guys that has the best interests of the club because he loves the club and he understands it all. And I think apart from Giggs, Nicky Butt was the first one to sort of break through as well. He was the one I remember starting a lot of games before everybody else. So I've got a lot of time for Nicky Butt. And really, if I was going to bring anybody back, I'd bring him back. But this is what he had to say. And I was quite surprised about it when I saw it a few days ago. But I thought, no, this is a really interesting topic. And it's one that's going to resonate with a lot of our viewers because there are Ten Hag outers, there are people who are undecided, and there are Ten Hag inners. And basically what he did, he was asked a question about the summer transfer window. And he said, have you seen any improvements from last season? And he said, no. I look at the signings and the short answer is no. They don't scream out to me that this is a set of signings that are going to make us compete for the Premier League. And it's more about trying to get back into Europe. And he said, I don't see a plan with the signings. I don't understand what they're going for. They're not superstars from their clubs. United used to go and get the best. It's strange. Now, my instant reaction to that is, well, they're not signings that are going to win us the Premier League because we can't get those signings. And therefore, that sort of nullifies everything he's got to say in a sense. But United used to go and get the best. I don't know when we did used to go and get the best, if I'm being completely honest. In the last 10 years, we've not done that. We've not done that at all. Paul Pogba was the best. It didn't work. Alexis Sanchez was the best. It didn't work. So going and getting the best isn't necessarily the right way of doing things. But I think it's really interesting when Nicky Butt looks at it and goes, it's strange what they're doing, because he's probably one of the only people who is an ex-player who has insight into that football club over the last 10 years. He was working in there. As I said, he was the head of first team development. And I think he had a vision and a philosophy of what we should be doing. And it was at odds with the Glazers and the Murtas and the Arnolds. And he got frustrated and he left. I'd love to know what his philosophy was, because he was definitely right. If he left that football club because he'd had enough of the Glazers and Murta and everybody, he's absolutely correct. So why is he looking at United now and going, it's strange, I can't see what they're doing? Because I respect that. I genuinely do respect that, because I respect the fact that he left the club because he was frustrated, and he was right to be frustrated. As I said, he said he was going to blow his top with the way the club was being run, and the vision and philosophy didn't match his philosophy. You can imagine what Nicky Butt's philosophy was. It wouldn't be hard to figure out that it would involve standards, expectations, winning things that Man United should be winning on a consistent basis. So I absolutely, I think that when Nicky Butt's looking at our summer transfer window and he's confused by it, you probably do need to listen, because he is somebody that knows the inner workings of that football club and how you get it to work. I think he's right when he says that the signings aren't screaming out Premier League title winners and it is about getting back into Europe. I do agree with that, and I don't think there's any problem with that. Where I worry about what Nicky Butt is saying is he saying he doesn't think these signings ever take you to a Premier League title? Is he saying they're strange signings, they're not the best players from their club, they're not screaming to me Premier League winners, they're screaming to me we want to get back into Europe? Because the way and this is the thing, and this is what got me thinking about it, and I wanted to put it to you. It will work as a poll, we'll do it in a minute, but I see these signings as getting us into the Champions League this year. But then I see the team growing better and better. What Nicky Butt might be saying, and I think he is saying, is I find these signings strange because I don't think they are signings that are going to take United to the Premier League ever. I think they're signings that will just put United back in fourth place, and that's what it looks like we want to do. And I think that is the balance, isn't it? Are these signings good enough to take us into the top four? Yes. But my expectation is that they take us beyond that. And that's the question, do you or not? It sounds to me like Nicky Butt doesn't think that these types of signings are the sort of signings that Man United should be making if they want to go back to the very top, which is what we all want to do. So let me just figure this one out. Hi, Mark. Would you ever be willing to start a Man United FM24 career? It has more detail compared to AFC. No, I probably wouldn't, Eddie, because I just find it a little bit long. I like to play for fun and all that lot. It's very easy. Are these signings good enough to take us to a title long term? That is the question. There we go. Because you know what? I look at Xerxes, young. I look at Agate, young. I look at De Ligt, still young. I look at Yoro, very young. I look at Rasmus, young. So I do think there are a lot of signings with potential to take us up there. But look, as I said, I don't actually respect a lot of ex-players' opinions, because I think sometimes they're just doing it because they're on Sky or whatever like that. But I think when someone like Nicky Butt says it and he's worked within the club, it's probably the first person who's spoken in a perceived negative way where I've actually thought, what if he's right? What if Nicky's right? What if these signings aren't that inspiring in relation to where we need to go? Because we are spending a lot of money, £600 million, £500 million. You've got to be buying players that are going on the journey. I don't want to be buying players that are just going to take us to fourth place, because that's no different to the last 10 years. And I certainly think he also said, I can't see the vision they're trying to build. You know, when you're bringing in players, you've got to be selling them the next 3 to 4 years. I can't see the vision they're trying to build. And that worried me as well, because I was like, but that's the whole thing for me. That is the whole thing. I do see the vision. And the fact that Nicky Butt and other people don't see that vision, they're like, what are we doing? These signings are strange. I think some people are looking at it, and maybe some of you are looking at it and going, yeah, people are getting excited about these signings, but I don't see the vision. Yeah, they might get into the Champions League this year and next year and the year after, but these are not signings that in 3 or 4 years that are going to take Man United to a title. Whereas I actually will put my hand up and say, am I the only one? I actually thought these signings were about building a team that can win the title in 3 or 4 years. But the fact that some people are looking at it and going, ha, you're having a bloody laugh, I don't see it, is a little bit concerning, I suppose. Mark, he's right, but not realistic. How can we think of winning the league without getting into the position of the Champions League, says Santi. Well, that's it. And, you know, and when he says, you know, these signings that Manchester United are making are strange, they're not superstars from their clubs. United used to go and get the best, and it's strange. I don't know what else we were supposed to do this summer. I mean, what players were available this summer that were superstars for their team? Kylian Mbappe is always going to go to Real Madrid. Elise, we tried to get, and he went to Bayern Munich. Branthwaite's a superstar for Everton. We couldn't get him. So I think that, you know what I think it is? Look, I've got total respect for Nicky Butt, one of the few. But I also think that there's a hangover from last season. There's still a hangover from the Glazers. And I think in this period of uncertainty, it is quite easy to be a little bit, not negative, but glass half full. What are we doing? What are we doing? Whereas I also think it's easy to be glass half full and be a bit more positive. Half empty and half full is what I meant to say. Because I look at it and I go, well, it's not that we haven't tried to bring in Crystal Palace's best player. He's now tearing it up for France and Bayern Munich. It's not like we didn't try to buy a left-footed centre-back who's probably one of the best up-and-coming players in England in Branthwaite. We have tried to do that. We've also brought in a leader in De Ligt who's going to give us the next 5 years of his prime, hopefully. We've also brought in a player that Real Madrid wanted in Lenny Yoro. All right, Xerxes is a bit of a hit in the dark. We know that. But for £34 million for a striker, you'll take that. And we needed to bring a striker in. Agate, okay, PSG are offloading him. And I think that is, we'll have to see what happens with Agate. I get that. But I choose to say that in opposition to Nicky Butt, as much as I respect him, in opposition to that, I do see the vision. I think the vision that's being sold here is that we're going to build something over the next 3 or 4 years to hopefully compete with Manchester City or the best team in England. I think that is the vision. Whereas when I go back to the vision under Mourinho, 100%, that was get me as many good players as you can now because I need to win the league in the next year. And these players will probably be shit in 2 or 3 years because they'll be 40. What I mean by that is Mourinho notoriously goes in everywhere and tries to do it very, very quickly. That's not a criticism. He won the league in his first 2 years in every club he was at before he came to Man United. When Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came in, I was like, I don't know what the style of player is. I really don't know what the style of play is. So I think that the vision is long-term, without a shadow of a doubt. But you've got to take it on board that some people might look at it and go, maybe it isn't. Maybe those players aren't hitting into that area. Because I think the big thing that Nicky Butt said as well, and I think it feeds into this, what's the plan over the next 3 to 4 years? Are these signings good enough? I think fundamentally the truth to the answer probably comes in here. What were your thoughts on Erik ten Hag getting to stay at Manchester United? And he said, well, why replace a manager that you're not sure about with your 4th choice manager? You're better off sticking. Obviously, they couldn't find or get the manager they wanted. So I understand why they've stuck with Ten Hag, because you don't want to be spending a load of money. You might not be sure about Ten Hag, but you don't want to be spending a load of money on a guy that's your 3rd or 4th choice anyway. And you know, but you know, forget about it. No, I can't. I've got to accept it. I'm trying to be petulant, but there's probably a real element of truth there, and it's probably not a surprising bit of truth, but it's not great, is it? Even I don't want to admit it, but it's not great. If that is what a lot of people think, and I think they do, they only stuck with Ten Hag because they couldn't get anybody better, then you are better sticking with Ten Hag than going for somebody that you think might not be as good. I get that, but it's not a great way to start a project, is it? When you go, we're not sure about you, oh, we're going to keep you because we can't find anything better. I always said that the managerial market this summer wasn't great, but maybe that feeds into a lot of people as well. How can you have a project for the next 3 or 4 years when your owners were trying to potentially replace your manager? But I think it's going to be very interesting. I mean, no signing is necessarily going to be successful out of everybody that we've bought. There is a percentage, of course, but I choose to be more positive. I choose to be more ambitious and optimistic about what we've done, because I trust that there is a vision. I trust that there is a plan over the next 3 to 4 years. And I think that is demonstrated by the fact that we brought Lenny Yoro into the club. I can't believe for 1 minute that Lenny Yoro just signed for Man United because we offered him a little bit more money. I think, you've got this great opportunity to go to Real Madrid and follow in the footsteps of all these teenagers that are winning Champions Leagues before they're 21, like Vinicius Jr. and Jude Bellingham and Camavinga. And he chose Manchester United. And I don't think he chose Manchester United for a few million for his family or his agents and a couple of, 100 grand a week more money or whatever it was. I think he chose Manchester United for the long-term vision of the club. So I think that there is one. And look, and also we must also remember that there are always going to be people that wish they were involved, and maybe there's still a bit of resentment from Nicky Butt. I pretty much guarantee there is, and I think it's justified. Maybe he wishes he was still involved, thinks he should still be involved. I certainly think he should be, but yeah, the proof will be in the pudding on that one. But I thought it was quite an interesting one to bring in because it's probably one of the first fundamentally quite negative, constructive comment pieces that I've seen that I've gone, actually, I think he's talking quite a lot of sense, even though I don't necessarily agree with it. And just to back that up, these 2 comments I think you'll like as well. He was asked about Toby Collier, and he said the mentality coming through is fantastic. Same with Kobe Mainoo as well, which is exactly what Nicky Butt's job was at Manchester United. But he was also asked about Marcus Rashford, and he said, look, there's absolutely no way that player, when people say he doesn't look interested, you can see that persona, but there's absolutely no way that he's not interested. There's a good player there. But he said, actually, and I think Scholes said it this week as well, but actually, it's probably time for a change. It's looking like it's time for a change for Rashford. And the amount of people that support him and are saying that is quite interesting as well. So, look, I think take it as you want, but I thought it was very, very interesting. And at a time where we've lost 2 of our first 3 games and there's a lot of people screaming Ten Hag out, this, that and the other, I think it's quite interesting that, Nicky Butt's not saying Ten Hag out. He's saying I can understand why they kept him when they couldn't find anything better. But his biggest concern is actually the transfers. He can't really see what that's all about. But I get that. I get that because at the moment it's very hard to see what anything's about because we've probably had about 8 months of a midfield that's so open and a system that doesn't seem to make any sense. And I think until we get those players back, and I firmly believe that, Luke Shaw, Martinez, De Ligt, either Mazraoui or Dalot, Agate, Mainoo, Bruno. There's still a job for Casemiro, Rasmus, Xerxes, Garnacho, Ahmad, Rashford, Mount. These players, if we can get them back, really will help us. Jarek, thank you very much for being a member for 10 months. Titles will come. The team core needed strength, says the Duke. And Sean Thornton says, how do other top clubs create hunger throughout a squad, yet we fail manager after manager, says Sean. And could DeMarco be a potential left-back signing, says Ben. I do like him, but I don't think we've ever been linked with him. Can't know that now, says Thomas. Nicholas Lawler says, Ronaldo, Evra, Vidic, De Gea, Valencia, the list goes on. All these players were not the best. And Kevin, welcome to Members Club. Thank you very much for that. Kithel says, Mount, Onana, Anthony, no plan. This was the previous appetizer, main course this season. Blaming the players when he never had a system effective for the league. Prioritising other trophies is weird. And I'll start to show through... Oh, Onana looks great sometimes, and I have seen him make some unbelievable reflex saves, but it's obvious to many now that he is crap at low shots either side, says Dinky Man. Just on that, you might have seen my tweet earlier. I am going to do a video on Onana, probably on Monday. We'll get it up as a, you know, an analytical sort of 10-minute video. But just starting to put that together, and... this season, so 3 games, he is third bottom worst save ratio in the league. 50%. He saves 50% of shots. Only Jordan Pickford and Sarr at Wolves are worse than him. The incredible thing is, some people would say, well, he's probably had loads of shots. That's why he's only saved half of them. He hasn't. He's had the same amount of shots as David Raya of Arsenal. They both had 10. David Raya has saved 90% of his shots. Onana has saved 50%. Get this. The goalkeeper that's faced the most shots this season is Flecken for Brentford. He's had 21 shots to Onana's 10. Onana's saved 50% of his 10. Flecken has saved 81% of his 21. So regardless of what people say, when I said on the third goal when Salah scored, it feels like every shot's a fucking goal with Onana. It is. He doesn't save enough shots. You know, I'm not saying that he's making glaring errors, but I mean, I'd like to see Flecken's bloody 80% of his shots saved, but I guarantee he'd do a better job in goal for us at the moment, because fundamentally, it's absolutely obvious to anybody, Onana has got to be utilised properly. We've got to use him at what he's good at, because if he's just a shot stopper, he really is probably bottom half of the table. He's just not a good shot stopper. I'm not saying he's terrible, but he's not a good shot stopper. And we've got to desperately start using him in the way that we bought him for, because for the last season and the first 3 games of this season, all we see of Onana is shots going in the back of the net. He's just being used as a shot stopper. And that fundamentally falls onto Ten Hag. You know, it's one of my biggest criticisms of Ten Hag. I never understood how he let David De Gea go for free and spent £50 million on Onana. It singularly is one of the most destructive moves we did. And look, I'm not going to talk about David De Gea against Fiorentina, although some of those saves, I don't know. Even as a De Gea fan, some of those have surely got to be luck. Have you seen the one where it's like, that's just unbelievable save, the one that's right upon him? But no, I think that we've got to utilise Onana for his strengths, because his shot stopping is not going to be good enough, and therefore we've got to start playing out from the back. Is Ben Foster now a better shot stopper than Onana, says Ben? Well, we'd love to do the video. I would say not, because he's retired, but, you know, I'd love to do the video. Let's have a look at this poll. Apparently it doesn't make sense. I wouldn't be surprised I typed it. Are these signings good enough to take us to a title long term? It's meant to be good, not could. So apologies for that. Yes, 44%. No, 56%. So look, Nicky Butt makes a fair point then, doesn't he? If he's splitting you, then he's probably making a good point. I want to just talk about this before we get into more of your questions. Goalkeeper uses any part of his body to save a shot. Onana always tries to use his hands, says Sean. Well, David De Gea was brilliant with his feet, wasn't he? But look, I don't know how prevalent this is, because I try not to spend a hell of a lot of time on social media. 5 years ago, I couldn't stay off it. But I'm talking about football Twitter, really. But I don't spend as much time on it now for a number of reasons. But you can tell me whether this is true or not. But a lot of people have been saying today, and I've had a couple of DMs, and a few people mentioned it on the watch-along as well for the England game. Have you noticed this growing Garnacho versus Rashford? Not even a debate. It's almost like Rashford FC versus Garnacho FC that's going on. I don't know how big it is. I don't know how widespread it is. I don't know whether it's banter or real. But it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. because I've sort of seen it anyway. I see it on the match day, on the watch along. You'll be watching a game and there'll be people going, get Garnacho on and get Rashford off. And it's literally 5 minutes in. It can't be based on Rashford's performance that game. And then you'll see other people like putting a compilation of Garnacho out, and then someone will quote tweet it and say, God, we've proper dropped off if this is the future of Man United. As Peacecake says, not very United. Absolutely. Absolutely. It needs to stop. It needs to stop. It was a very prevalent thing with Pogba and Bruno when they had the crossover. There was Pogba FC, obviously, and then there was new player Bruno. And it was a lot of people were sort of locked on one or the other. Now, as you know, I'm a massive fan of Bruno, and I was a massive fan of Pogba. Admittedly, I felt it was time to divorce, and it certainly was, but I didn't feel it needed to be with booze and toxicity. I just felt that with Pogba and Man United, it should have been pat on the back. Sorry it didn't work out. Wish you all the best. Because I just think Paul Pogba was singularly one of the most wasted midfielders of his generation. I think he had the ability to be so much more. And still, his highlights reel for United's not that bad. But we did have it with Pogba and Bruno to a certain extent. And it did get quite toxic. And there were certain fans who were Pogba FC and hated Bruno, and Bruno FC and hated Pogba. And it's silly. It's really silly. I said this about Xerxes and Rasmus. Like, there is no competition for the first place other than the one that the manager decides upon. I don't care who starts up front. I really don't. I think Rasmus at the moment should be when he's back fit. But if Xerxes starts scoring goals, let the battle commence. Support both. We had a front four in the 99 season, and I don't remember thinking anything negative of Sheringham or Solskjaer at any point. It was sort of like, York and Cole are tired, or York and Cole are injured, or York and Cole are not playing well, bring on Sheringham and Solskjaer. And that's the way it should be. And we can't do this. We simply cannot do this with Rashford and Garnacho. Whatever you think, you can't do it. Garnacho is 19, has got the potential to be anything he wants to be. And I've said this for the last 2 years. His ceiling is probably the highest in that squad. I genuinely think he could go very, very high. At the moment, I don't think he is the best player in the squad. But he's 19. He's 19. I've seen what people like Ronaldo did between 19 and 22, and it was abnormal. And it can happen. You know, you look at Jude Bellingham from 2 years ago to now. The whole body shape, persona, confidence, when you hit 2021 is different. Garnacho's got that to come. Kobe Mainoo's got that to come as well. So we should not be having this debate about Garnacho or Rashford anyway, and we certainly shouldn't be taking sides. Garnacho is still a young player that needs nurturing just as much as Collier and Mainoo does as well. And what a talent. And ultimately, if he does go and play for Real Madrid and we take £100 million, that £100 million could get you Wharton and another player. So it's a win-win-win for me with Garnacho. And I don't know what it is. There are certain fans out there that were slagging him off 18 months ago. Like, I remember it. I remember it very, very well. As an 18-year-old, people were slagging him off, and I just don't get it. I don't get it at all. As for Rashford, if you're Garnacho FC and you're calling him Trashford, what does that do? What does that do? It doesn't do anything either way. We shouldn't be having player FC debates, pitching them against each other because they're United players. And trust me, I've got first-hand information that sort of stuff has gone on in the dressing room over the last 6 years, where players have siloed those, even though they're playing for the same team, they silo themselves off into little cliques, and it becomes a competitive arena within the dressing room. If we can't unite as a fan base, how the bloody hell can we expect the people who are paid to wear our shirt to unite? They're not bloody necessarily United fans, are they? They're there to do a job. And if they see the fans pitching them against each other, then they're going to do it themselves. And with regards to Rashford, he's not going to get sold. He isn't playing particularly well at the moment, but he's meant to be a senior player. He's 26. You know, he should be a player. The relationship between him and Garnacho should actually be completely different to player FC. It should be. I've been there. I've played the game. I've done that. I've made that mistake, or I've made this positivity. I just don't get it. I just don't get it at all. You can have a preference on the player. You can moan if one gets subbed. You can moan if one starts. But to turn it into an either or, to turn it into, a toxic back and forth, it's just incredible. They wear the same bloody shirt. I would love Garnacho to be player of the year and Marcus Rashford to score 25 goals. Happy days. I don't mind a debate as long as they're both performing. I don't mind somebody coming here and saying Rashford's better than Garnacho or Garnacho's better than Rashford, but let's do that debate when they're both performing. Let's not run the possibility of running them into the ground with toxicity in the fan base and making it be who's the worst. You know, let's do it in a positive way. That's what I think. I don't remember if you reacted to it post-Liverpool. Did you see that journalist confrontation with Ten Hag at the press conferences, Simon Stone? I did, but I found it a bit pantomime, to be honest. I think Ten Hag reacted to it quite badly. And I think the journalist took an open goal shot after a result to Liverpool. He spoke about what every single one of you have been speaking about for 8 months. So I don't think it was bad journalism, but I don't think it was insightful. I think it was an open goal opportunity to chuck a question at Ten Hag that I'm sure many of us would have done and ask him about why we're so wide open. Kevin, thank you very much for your super chat. I don't think if Ten Hag loses his job, it'd mostly be because of his decision to sign Onana. Sorry, I think if Ten Hag loses his job, it'd mostly be because of his decision to sign Onana, Mount and Anthony, says Shahin. Nick, you know what, mate? I'm not going to brush over this, Shahin. 50 million, 55 million, 80 million, 180 million pounds there. They are the three that worry me. They are. Rasmus, happy with. Martinez, happy with. Casemiro, to a certain extent, was not his signing in the sense that he wanted De Jong, and at the end of the window they panicked, they got Casemiro, but he played very well in the first season. So there's mitigating circumstances with Casemiro. But Rasmus, Martinez, yes. Eriksen was a free, and it did work until Andy Carroll. Casemiro I've spoken about. Obviously, De Ligt I like, Mazraoui I like, Agate I like, Xerxes I like, Yoro I like. But the Onana, Anthony and Mount signings are the ones where you do worry. Joth, welcome to Members Club. Thank you very much for joining. I wanted Anthony. That summer, I was very excited about Anthony. And look, I don't rewrite history. There's a video of me reacting to Harry Maguire saying he's one of the best centre-backs in the world. So, you know, there's no point in hiding when the clips are out. But Anthony, I do believe that summer I said Anthony was the signing that excited me the most. We all get it wrong. We all get it right. The reason I was excited about Anthony is because watching him play for Ajax that season before, you know, there was creativity, there was individuality. Obviously, the red flag was that we'd seen this with Memphis. The season before we signed Memphis from PSV was absolutely fantastic. But yeah, you know, I can't argue with the signing of Anthony. I can argue with the price. We overpaid. The Onana signing, I wouldn't have done that summer. The Mount signing, it's not that I wouldn't have signed Mount. It's just that I didn't understand why we signed Mount. We signed Mason Mount in a position we didn't need to strengthen, and then we got Johnny Evans on a free in a position that we did. And yeah, and Mason Mount's never been fit. So, thank you very much. Ten Hag plays long ball counter, basically. When a player has the ball, everyone spreads to counter-attack, says Angel Bro. No, I disagree. I think we have played some quite good patterns of play across Ten Hag's period. It's just been too sporadic. I mean, if you could be asked to go through the last couple of years, you could probably find some really good playing out from the back montages. I certainly can remember a few, and even this season I think we've moved the ball quite nicely. It's just sporadic. It is sporadic, and sometimes it does feel like everyone's running away from the ball. But yeah. Sorry, I missed it a few moments ago. Apparently Xerxes playing quite well for the Netherlands. I don't know who they're playing, but let's have a quick look. 2-1 against Bosnia. I mean, it's Bosnia at the end of the day. De Ligt starts, Van Dijk, Xerxes is a 10. I think he's got a goal and an assist. Has he got an assist as well? But look, ultimately, on that, as we said about Agate this morning and Delo the other night, it's a good thing that they're playing. I mean, it might not be a good thing that they're playing in the second and third international break, but I think in the first international break, as many play, I mean, apart from probably Kobe Mainu, I think it does them good. Bruno's catching up, Delo's catching up, Martinez is catching up, Agate's catching up, Xerxes catching up, De Ligt's catching up. They haven't played a lot of football because they missed our pre-season. So they actually do need games. And I think that there is a real positivity that De Ligt's starting, Xerxes starting, because it's first team football. All right, it's not the Premier League, but it's still football. So I think there's a real positive that those two are playing, because I wasn't necessarily expecting it. The question is, where would Ajax finish in the Premier League, says Parker. I suppose the other question is, look what happened to Ajax since Ten Hag left. I don't think they've done very well, have they? Red Devil says, drinking yet again. It is Saturday night, mates. I didn't realise you were counting. And I've had 2 cans, Dad. What, according to you, will keep us continuously playing in the Champions League? Is it about more signings? Is it about the coaching? Look, I'm trying to remember now, gameplay. I think what I said at the start of the Ineos takeover when they decided to keep Ten Hag was that I'm looking at a 3-year plan. It's not reset for Ten Hag, because this year I'm looking at Champions League football. One way or another. Top 4, maybe top 5 if we get an extra spot, or win the Europa League. So year 1, Champions League football is what I'm looking for. Year 2, staying in the Champions League, because we don't do that very often since Sir Alex Ferguson left. We do Champions League out, Champions League out. So I want Champions League football this year, Champions League football next year, with a bit of progression, and then in year 3 I want to be challenging for the title. So this season and next season, Champions League football. The season after that, I want to be challenging for the title. I'm not saying we should win it, but in 2 seasons' time, I want us to... So progression then, isn't it? We've been very good at signing players and getting in the Champions League, but we've been very bad at sustaining it. Consistency. So that is what we're looking for here. We're looking... You know, Nicky Butt says he can't see a plan. He can't see a vision. That's what we need to see. We need to see sustained consistency of getting in the top 4. Because we've not been very, very good at that at all. Who do you think, Mark, will be a perfect replacement if Ten Hag gets sacked? I'm not answering that, Ankush, because I don't... You know, you want to be very careful what you wish for, because I watched England play Ireland today, and whilst it wasn't fantastic, a manager that puts a left winger on the left winger and the left back at a left back, you know, unlike Southgate, doesn't stop at 1-0. Basics. But we could end up with bloody Gareth Southgate. They're playing scared. We all need to get behind them, says John. I do think as well. I mean, I don't want to... We sort of did the Agate show this morning, didn't we? But I think what interests me about what's coming out from United at the moment is that there is this obsession around a certain type of player. There's a lot of stuff coming out at the moment that Erik Ten Hag is a massive fan of Toby Collier. And we picked up on this towards the end of last season, that Collier might be a player to watch out for this season. And then I think after the FA Cup final, when Ten Hag spent that time with Collier on the pitch, the same way he did with Mainu the year before in the Carabao Cup, you sort of thought straight away, okay, watch this lad. He's definitely going to be a player that's important to Ten Hag. But in addition to that, a lot of the feedback coming out of the club is that Ten Hag is really impressed with Collier. Obviously, people like Nick Cox are, because they're aware that he's moving from the youth into the mainstream, into the main team. Sorry, but the excitement and the reason Ten Hag is impressed with Collier is the work ethic, the energy, the fact that he never stops running. I mean, in many ways, we know that Ten Hag probably didn't want McTominay to go. He'd rather Eriksen went, or Casemiro. But in many ways, Collier is the natural heir to the McTominay throne. Because what did McTominay bring? Legs and passion. What does Collier bring? Legs, passion, passing, and better ability on the ball. So I think Collier is he's probably not ready yet, but I think he's a very important part of what we're looking to bring to that midfield. And obviously the biggest thing is Agate. If Agate can bring legs and energy to that team, it's inspiring to everybody else. It makes everybody else's job a lot easier if there's a midfielder that has that energy and work ethic and tenacity, because we're not going to get it from Casemiro. We're just not. In fact, Nicky Butt was asked about Casemiro, just another little bit from that interview. And he said, look, I had it at Newcastle when I was still playing. You just suddenly realise that you can't do what you were doing the season before. It suddenly hits you. Like, you can't get across the ground as much as you used to. And it's a wake-up call. And that's what appears to be happening to Casemiro, is that he just can't do that anymore. When we put somebody in that role who can, because it's not Mainoo's job to do that, I think it will make a lot of difference to the team. You know, Bruno Fernandes probably doesn't get back as much as he could, but we don't really want him to get back. We want him to have that sort of free roaming role. Kobbie Mainoo is a devastating talent in a creative sense. Yes, we want him to have some defensive responsibility, but we don't want him to have an overload of defensive responsibility because Casemiro hasn't got the legs and Mainoo's got to be those legs. Look, if you look at the stats, Casemiro still covers... I mean, I had this argument the other day. Somebody was saying, well, if you look at the stats, Casemiro actually covers more ground than Kobbie Mainoo. And I'm like, yeah, but how quickly does he cover it? Sometimes it's not about how far you run, it's how quick you get there. Casemiro is not standing still. He's doing a lot of running. He's just not quick, is he? He's not getting there quick enough. So I think that look, obviously there's a big expectation and pressure on this Ugarte signing. There's no point in not saying this. Ugarte's got to be a success. Otherwise our whole season could crumble. Like, this signing has to be a success. He can't get injured. He can't be a flop. He's got to work. But if it does work, it has the potential to make a really big difference to the way that we want to play football. Xerxes is going to be our Firmino, says Perk. I'm really glad I'm not watching these international games because they mean nothing. And people get overexcited about them. The standard is shit. The positive is they're playing and they're getting energy in their legs. 5 signings you would like to see next is the Duke. I can't answer that. We've just closed the transfer window. I can't give you 5 players I would like to sign at the moment. But I would like a left back. I would like a winger. I would certainly like to replace Casemiro properly. I mentioned Edison this morning. I did think we needed a right back at one point, and but we don't now. So yeah, I think for me, a left back, another midfielder, and a winger. And then I'm starting to get greedy. So we might not be that far away in relation to getting the squad that we want. I mean, you still need to fill out your bench, definitely. Ugarte changes absolutely nothing. We don't dictate play or create enough chances, and he doesn't help with that, says Upheaval. You know what? You do a show, you have a really good chat for 53 minutes, and then you get Upheaval who just comes in and causes upheaval. I mean, he changes absolutely nothing. Okay, so at the moment, we've got a really slow past-it midfielder who keeps giving the ball away. And if we replace him with somebody who is quicker, more tenacious, and plays more simple passes, it won't change anything. So effectively, we've got a guy who gives the ball away, who ain't quick enough and doesn't make enough tackles. And if we replace him with somebody who keeps the ball, makes more tackles and covers more ground, it won't make a difference. Well, mate, it's like you've just described 2 opposites. Of course, there is the potential for it to change. I'm not going to sit here and say everything's going to change, but we have singly focused on a certain set of attributes that the board of Man United's footballing structure feel is absolutely essential. And they've certainly looked at the amount of work rate Ugarte does, his pass retention rate. He's a simplified passer as well. Ugarte. He's not a player that starts hitting Hollywood balls from the number 6 position. He's not Rodri, but he's a ball retainer. He will get the ball and give it to better players on the ball, which will make a big difference because we do need to get control of the midfield, and that is what Ugarte is being brought in for. Of course, there's a massive risk, and Upheaval might be right. Maybe it won't work. Maybe it won't be a good signing, but you can't not say that you can see... Look, it's one thing to say he's going to be a rip-roaring success, but you can't look at the signing and say you can't understand why we're doing it. It's abundantly clear why we're doing it. Win the ball back more, control the ball more legs in the midfield. They're the 3 fundamentals. And as I said to you last week, we give the ball away a lot. We give the ball away for being offside. We give the ball away for bad passes. We give the ball away for bad shots. We give the ball away a lot. I don't know what the stat is, but we give possession up a hell of a lot. Crap corners, the whatever, right? We give possession to the opposition easily. What's the antidote to that? Well, stop being offside, stop playing bad passes, but also get better at winning the ball back. If you're going to give it away a lot, make sure you win it back a lot. And I think that's fundamentally what we're going to try and do. Gavin says, don't forget to like and share the video. Thank you very much, Gavin. We're very close to 1,000 likes, actually. That midfield needs a ball-playing midfielder. Agate won't make that midfield progress the ball or dominate it, says Daff. You know what, Daff? I might call you daft. What are you talking about? That midfield needs a ball-playing midfielder. That wouldn't solve a fucking thing at Manchester United. How's that going to work? You're trying to solve the problem before the problem. We haven't got the ball. If we haven't got the ball, how are we going to control the ball? You're jumping ahead. I heard Paul Scholes say this. You're jumping ahead. We need someone to get on the ball and control the game. We haven't got the bloody ball. We've got to get the ball first. And also, if we get hold of the ball more and Agate gives it to Mainu and Bruno more, maybe they'll control the game more. But we've got to win the ball. We haven't got enough winners. Eriksen. Look, Christian Eriksen could work in a United side if we had more of the ball. Christian Eriksen is a very decent, slow possession player. But he can't win the ball back. You've got to fund... Look, we've got people who might be okay at keeping the ball. Eriksen, Mount, Mainu, Bruno. They are ball players. They are not ball winners. We have got a stack of ball players. They might not be good enough. They might not be good enough, Daff, but we've got a lot of people who are possession-based players. I think Mainu's more of an all-rounder, yes, but possession he's good at. We haven't got enough winners. We need a ball winner first. I'm not saying that we don't need a Zubimendi, but what we do need is certainly a ball winner first. Eventually, something will click positively with Ten Hag. With Sam Erith as performance director, we never had a performance director for years at the club, says Leon. We give the ball away in the final third too much, and Agate will win it back for us higher up the pitch, says Nuke. Maybe we'd get the ball more if we don't lose the ball. Yeah, but we can win. But winning the ball back, also, opposition are always going to have possession. Winning the ball back well is never going to be a problem. We need to just improve little by little. Marginal gains, after all, says John. I think we need to improve massive gains over the next few weeks, mate. I think when you lose 2 of your first 3, the pressure is quite rightly on. Marginal gains aren't going to wash it. You know, drawing to Palace and Southampton ain't going to do... Yeah, all right, you're unbeaten, but that's not... Imagine we draw to Southampton and we draw to Palace. Are we going to be sat there going, marginal gains, we haven't lost? Like, I think we're already in a position where we've got to start winning games, really. Here's to hoping we can turn it around at Southampton. Injuries are still prominent, but good mentality is going to be key. Smart snubs are needed. You know what, Spin? What I will tell you about Southampton is they will be energetic. They will move the ball quickly. They will create an atmosphere. And if we go there with 3 or 4 players that perform below average, which is what happens a lot, we will struggle to get a result. We have got to be on it. And also... it's not ideal. I don't know what the facts are. I remember somebody doing an article on this about 5 years ago. Statistically, going away from home after an international break is a banana skin. It always has been. So 12:30 as well, the earliest kickoff you can get after an international break away from home against a team that's lost all their games, or did they draw one? They might have lost them all, Southampton. I think they drew one. Against Man United, who are a bit vulnerable, get at them in the first 20 minutes. If they score the first goal, I would be very, very panicky, because that atmosphere will go up tenfold and our heads will go down. So it's a tough game. It is a tough game. We've got to go into that with the right mentality. Digital Media Content says, I love the show. Can you give a shout out to my son Alex from Belfast, who turned 14 today? Happy birthday. Yeah, happy birthday to Alex. Hope you're doing well. Did read or reply to my comments, says the Duke. Yes, I did. I read it about 5 signings. Have you seen the differences with Bruno having players around him playing their part? He gets the chance to focus on a distributor. United in time. Oh no, I didn't read your Bruno one, the Duke. I read your 5 signings one. Look, at the end of the day, you want your best players to have freedom, and they still need to work and they still need to be part of the system. But Bruno Fernandes like last season at right back and centre back ain't why we want to see Bruno. We want to see Bruno in that final third. And then you can really judge him. We've got to get hold of that midfield one way or another. Whether you go with a double pivot or whether Agate solves the problems, you've got to get hold of that midfield. Ivor says, making excuses before they lose to Southampton. What are you talking about? Have you not got anything better to do at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night other than lie? Making excuses. No one's making excuses at all. What I'm saying is, straight after the international break, at Southampton, at 12:30, after losing to Liverpool, and they're going to be hungry, it's a difficult game. If you're sat there saying, I'm making excuses, I'm not making excuses. If we lose, he's probably going to get the sack, mate. So there won't be any excuse. What I'm saying is, I don't want people thinking, oh, it's only Southampton, we'll win 4 or 5-0, because when do we ever do that? Name me a time United go and win 4 or 5-0. We won't do that. And if we do that, I'll be very, very impressed. What we have to do, Eva, is go and win. There is no excuse. But don't ever get arrogant to, oh, it's only Southampton. When in the last 10 years has it only ever been Southampton? And this is the problem with some people. Their expectations are still stuck in the fucking 90s. We're not that team anymore. We need to build back to being that team. But it's only Southampton is why we keep fucking getting fans reacting to results like it's a new thing. I mean, I can't understand. You know what I genuinely can't understand? I can't understand the people. And if we had fan cams anymore, which we don't, thank God. You know, like some of the games, you get people on, 5 or 6 years ago when we were doing fan cams, they'd be going absolutely mad that they couldn't even talk. I sort of understood it then because it was like, it was the first time we'd really experienced how shit we were. But what I don't understand now is how people can start screaming and shouting when we lose a game of football. I'm like, where have you been then? How was your coma? Like, people screaming and shouting, ringing up after we lost to Liverpool. Like, what are you surprised about? Like, what are you surprised about? We're not a team that batters anybody anymore, and we do lose a lot of games. So you won't get me saying it's only Southampton. I'll say we've got to win, but I'll also say there are elements of that fixture with its timing and what's been going on that make it difficult. And we've certainly had some losses at Southampton before. I remember the grey kit. Where's the expectations, says Marvin? The expectation is that we win against Southampton and that we win well. The reality might not be the expectation, is what I'm saying. Ollie got a 9-0, says Tomo. And can I have the relevance to that? How many trophies did Ollie win? Did he get a trophy for that? What's the point? What's your point? That was at Old Trafford during COVID, wasn't it? And they got a man sent off after about 10 seconds. Yeah, I don't really get that. I think it's just this Ollie revisionist shit. Harry Maguire played well today. He should be given a chance to lead again at United. Oh, it's getting worse. I'm off. I've had enough of the internet for tonight. Thanks everyone for watching. I will see you tomorrow. There's no morning show tomorrow because I'm off to watch Seb play at 10 o'clock. So I can't do the 10 o'clock show. So I will probably do it at 12 o'clock midday so I can tell you the result. So yeah, I've had enough though. Well done, Sam and Tomo. I just can't. Bye. Thanks everyone. Take care. Stay safe. And I'll see you tomorrow at midday. Have a great one. Thank you very much.